And now it's Deborah Kobylt Live.
Hi, everybody, and thanks for joining us today on Deborah Kobylt Live. So honored to introduce our guest today, Peter Coyote, who hardly really needs an introduction, award-winning actor, loved him in E.T., award-winning author. This book that I'm interviewing him for, The Lone Ranger and Tonto Meet Buddha. Also an ordained Zen priest, but as Peter likes to call himself, he says he's coming from nowhere and working his way back. We're going to ask him about that. Thanks for joining us, Peter.
Thank you so much, Deborah. It's nice to talk to you again.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. Gosh, let's start with the book. I was reading it this weekend. I had friends over. They said, that's an interesting title, Lone Ranger and Tonto Meet Buddha. How did he come up with that? I said, well, you're just going to have to watch and figure it out. So why don't you tell us?
Well, it's actually a problem-solving solution. So for about 40 years, I've been teaching people how to get out of their own way, running classes using acting improv and actors' techniques and masks. And if I work with you for half a morning and I put a mask on you and I hold a mirror up in front of you so that you see the mirror, it'll wipe your personality out and you'll get the character from the mask. Somewhere, all your brain cells come together and they create someone new to make up for the unrecognized face in the mirror. And for about 10 minutes, you are without embarrassment, fear, self-consciousness, and you're this person. And in every one of my classes, I do this 3 times with 3 different masks for each person. And then I use this to explain why Buddha said that we have no fixed self. The thing we think of as our self is not a fixed organ, it's an awareness. And we tend to think there's a little armature in there that's us and it's unchangeable or it's very difficult to change. So by the time you've gone through one of these classes, you've had an experience, cold sober, of absolute freedom. And so I use that as a lost leader to say, if you want to recapture this, you need to learn how to meditate. You need to learn Buddhist understanding of reality. So the book was going to be kind of dry. And so I thought, I don't know how I thought of it. I thought of the Lone Ranger and Tonto being out of work, overweight, lost in the desert. The horses are lame, they're fat, and they see the Buddha camping in the desert. And the Lone Ranger doesn't know who he is, but they go to get some water. And the Buddha jumps up and he takes such perfect care of the horses that the Lone Ranger thinks this guy must be the servant, the very well-trained servant of a rich guy. Let's hang out. When his owner comes back, we'll ask him for a loan. Maybe he'll want to invest in a movie. Of course, the Buddha sees through this right away, and he tricks them, not Tonto, I have to say, who knew something was up, but he tricks the Lone Ranger into building a stone treasure house to guard his master's treasure. And in doing this, he gets back in shape, he gets strong, he gets fit, he gets healthy, both of them do. And each one learns to meditate, and each one has an enlightenment experience. And it's sort of a lighthearted way of explaining what can happen to any human without any philosophy, without any, the Lone Ranger has guilts and fears and anxieties, and so does Tonto. They're human. And when push comes to shove, the Buddha gets down to looking at these. And so every other chapter is this saga of the Lone Ranger and Tonto between exercises and mask stuff and things you can do on your own.
It was brilliant. Let me ask you about the mask. What happens when we take off the mask? I mean, to simplify it, right? Look at what happens at Mardi Gras, right? People put on the mask, or we've been at costume parties. I very often am someone else when this happens. And the mask comes off and suddenly it's like, oops, Deborah's back. Got to be here. So how do you make sure to carry on with what we're learning with the mask on once the mask comes off?
Well, this is actually what Buddha taught. And just for those people that don't know, Buddha is not a god. He's not sacred and special. Buddha is a guy like Einstein who solved this apparent problem of the self and other and reality. And what he understood was quite simple, that everything in reality is dependent on everything else. You and I have never been separate from oxygen. We've never been separate from water. or sunlight or pollinating insects or microbes in the soil that feed our food, or the people that grow the cotton, mill the cotton, weave it into cloth, and sew our clothes. And if you take it out, it goes all the way out into the Earth's place in the solar system. If we were closer to the sun, water would burn off, we wouldn't be here. If we were farther away, it would freeze. And the Earth is being held in place by all the gravitational forces of the universe. So while it's true that you're sitting over there and I'm sitting over here, and we all have a feeling of self-consciousness, that's only half the equation. The other half is that we're all like ticks on the body of a dog. We're all part of one big thing. And because of we're all attached in these various ways, the Buddhists say that we are empty of self, that everything is empty of self. The hand is a word, the self is a word. But if you take my hand apart, skin, muscle, blood vessels, nerve vessels, bones, ligaments, tendons, you're not going to find anything in there that says hand. And no matter how deeply you look in your own nature to find yourself, you'll never find it. It doesn't have a color. It doesn't have a location. It doesn't have a shape. So by learning and having some experience of it as an awareness, you realize, awareness is what the universe is made of. So
Right.
when I say I came from nowhere and I'm working my way back, Buddhists call the pregnant energy of the universe emptiness, because it's always becoming something. It's always becoming forms. And that's the only way we can see it. But we can know it's there because its creative energy is limitless. Millions of species of birds, of insects, geography, living zones. And so by understanding that we're all products of this pregnant energy, this energy, we're made of the same stuff as the people we hate. It gives us a different perspective on living our lives. And when we learn to meditate on this, and we learn to be able to detach from our thoughts and not be jerked around by them, then we become the boss of everything. Then our life is pretty good. You do less
Gosh,
harm.
when you just said the phrase, we're made of the same stuff as the people we hate, who do you think I just thought about, right? That guy over, across the ocean. And I thought, I doubt he practices this type of deep thinking, or maybe he does, but if he does, he's going the wrong way. But what are you going to say?
The problem with his thinking is it's one-sided. It's only looking at the half of the equation of him as an isolated person and what he gets out of it. And so Buddha pointed out that evolutionarily, it was probably important for us to see ourselves as separate. And we needed aggression, and we needed fear, and we needed the delusion of thoughts to make up explanations of where it's all from and how we did it. But as the world gets filled in, and as there are more different kinds of people, we need to understand that we are the problem we're trying to solve, that human nature is half good and half dark. And if we don't understand that we have the darkness that we're always trying to kill in other people and change in other people, we don't see the ways in which we create problems in the world, by greed, by envy, by jealousy, by competition, by aggression. So one of the things meditation does is, it gives us the courage to sit as these things arise and identify them so that we can be responsible for them. Putin doesn't have to worry about that.
Peter, how do we meditate? Because very often when you say that to someone, they think, oh gosh, how, where, what do I do? Do I need a forest? Can you give us it's pretty much anywhere, right? It comes from here, but I want to hear it from you.
It'll take me 3 minutes to tell you. The best is to be able to put a pillow about this wide firm under your butt and sit cross-legged, because it's stable. Your knees do it. But if you can't, for some reason or another, sit in a chair and don't lean back against the chair. Sit up straight. Imagine your head's being pulled up straight, and you tuck your chin just enough to feel the back of your neck lessen. And then you put your hands in your lap, and you, like this knuckle goes into
Yeah.
its corresponding finger, and you put your thumbs together very lightly. I should be able to put a dollar bill, pull it through. If you're left-handed, you put your left hand on the bottom and your right hand on top. If you're right-handed, you put your active side under. And you lay that in your lap, and that's your attention gauge. As long as that circle is nice and fat, as long as your thumbs are touching, your attention is up. And all you do is you let your stomach relax, and you put a little downward tension on it, like just before a cough. You can feel your diaphragm. Let your shoulders relax, and then just sit there like you were waiting for a bus and put your attention on the exhales of your breath. You can feel the breath coming right out past your nostrils, and that will keep you right in the present moment. And when your mind wanders, and it will, just come back to your breathing, like house training a puppy on the newspaper, Fido. And so by doing that, you do that every day for 20 or 30 minutes, you'll find in about a month, you have a feeling of spaciousness inside, like you're moving in a much bigger field. And little by little, your mind starts to slow down on its own. Because the problem is not our minds. The mind is a gland to produce images. The problem is that we attach to it. Somebody does something. Someone cuts us off in traffic. We want to give them the finger. We get angry. How dare they? They could have hurt me. We go through all these narratives. Well, what Buddhists do is we say, oh, that person that cut me off, that's the trigger. But the anger is mine. And my job is to watch the anger and contain it, because it's just energy. The world is filled with afflictions, things that disturb us, things that bother us, make life difficult. We can't help that. We're not at fault for suffering from that. Neither are we at fault for what arises in the mind. We are responsible to contain it so that we don't hurt other people. And at the point at which our confidence is up and our strength is up, and we can stop those leaks of competition, envy, jealousy, then we can live a life that's noble and dignified and be helpful to others. That's basically it. And meditation is what allows your personality, which we call your small mind, to soften. And if you do that long enough, one day something will ripen and your personality will fall away, even for just a minute. You can't live in enlightenment, but you'll see the world as it actually is without looking through the choices available to your personality, which are just like something, dislike something, or being neutral about it.
How do we, go ahead, please.
Go ahead. No.
How do we get rid of the noise? And there's a lot of noise. I think throughout, everyone's lifetime through the centuries, there's always been noise.
Yep.
But particularly now, there's noise in every direction, whether it's from traffic, online stuff. You gave a great example of being in traffic, right? How do you immediately come back to center when you're in that moment? You're angry, irritated. What is the technique? Would it be the breathing? Would that bring us back to center?
That's one thing. So this is why we call what we do a practice. This is why it's not exactly a religion. It's a way to live a life based on this understanding that we're all joined together. Right? We're all in this world, and we're all forced to sit on our hands because Putin has an atom bomb. Right? We invented the atom bomb to make us safe, and now it's forcing us to sit back and watch war crimes just by its existence, not because a bad guy has it, but just because it's here, anybody could have it, and it's a threat to all life. So when we meditate, what we're practicing is we're putting our attention on our posture. We're putting our attention on this mudra I showed you, and we're putting our attention on our breathing. And that sequesters enough of our awareness that our mind can just do what it's doing. And anytime we get the noise overpowers us, you just come back to your posture and your breathing and your mudra. And when you do it often enough, you can basically just switch your attention to your exhale. I exhale before I answer the phone. I exhale before a meeting. Just put all my attention on the breath coming out past my nostrils, and it clears your mind. And so, you do this for 40, 50 years, you become much more imperturbable than when you began.
Let's talk about when you began. You and I are both from New Jersey. You grew up there, and then you went and you were doing theater in New York. Then you made your way out west, and you became very politically active, but you were also politically active in school. I know that, and as far back as probably you can recall. Tell me about yourself. Tell me how you got into this. Tell me how you got to tell everyone how you got into acting. I mean, I find you so interesting because you're so diverse, right? You don't just act, which is difficult enough, but you're politically active and you remain so. And the world means a lot to you. Our environment means everything to you. Our connection means so much. How did you become Peter Coyote of today from where you started? Big question, huh?
I mean, I did write 2 books about it.
Yeah.
But hold on, someone's here. Okay.
They can join us if you want them to. Just bring them on in, whoever they
let me just find out what it is and send them away. Are we okay? We're on tape or are we live?
We're actually live, but
Nope.
when I do things live, I don't really care what happens. It's
all
part of it.
I don't know who they are. But
Amazon. I mean,
no, I'd feel better if I knew who it is. Can I just go look?
Yeah, no problem whatsoever. I'll just keep everyone entertained. Okay, let's look at that gorgeous space in the background. My engineer is here. Tony, are you with me?
I am. Would you like to run the commercial?
I am not sure because he might get confused if he comes back and there is a commercial about making beads. But I will tell you what, we will be having a commercial later about Annie's, which is making your own jewelry and Afghans and all that. But I have to admit, Tony, I've never really had a show where my guests left in the middle to see what's going on out there. I kind of like it. I think it's very interesting. I really do. And let me see, it's got a really cool room out there, right? I love the color red. I'm not quite sure what's hanging on the walls, but interesting. And just to keep everyone engaged, I would hope that this would keep everybody engaged. I asked Peter Coyote, where did he start?
All right.
That's fine. And no, I was just talking to myself and to my guests because I actually think this is great. I love real life when it happens in the middle of whatever we're doing. Anyway, I was saying, repeating to everybody, we asked Peter Coyote, how did you become the Peter Coyote of today? Because I find you just so diverse and interesting. Go ahead. Who was at the door, by the way? Who was it?
Some guy, someone I know, but who dropped in without letting me know. And, no, it's okay, but I had to send him away. So I grew up in, my father was a very diverse man, very complicated. He minted money for a long time until he lost it all. Everything he touched turned into money. We were a secular Jewish family, very educated and intelligent. A lot of socialists and communists in my family during the 1940s and 50s. And it's important to remember that as a political philosophy, those are constitutionally protected. These people were not spies for Stalin. They were union organizers and teachers and people like that. And until Stalin, they believed that communism would be a better system. But when the McCarthy period came, it broke up a lot of those people, bankrupted them, forced them to snitch on people or lose their jobs. And I saw this. I saw grown-ups weeping in my living room, and I was infuriated that the government was lying about my family, about people I knew, who I knew were good people who spent their lives helping other people. So it gave me a certain kind of political cast, and it sort of ended my trust in government. You have to earn it. It's not that I think we can do without it, but I've had enough experience that people will do anything to remain in power. So I left, I went to college in the Midwest, and I took up acting there, and I took up writing there. And when I graduated, I came to San Francisco. I didn't really act in New York until the San Francisco Mime Troupe, Harry Belafonte and Nipsey Russell saw a show that I was directing called the Minstrel Show, Civil Rights in a Cracker Barrel. It really used an old time racist art form, if you can say art form, to talk about the political ideas of Malcolm X. And it was very popular and very radical. And we got arrested many times. Anyway, I spent about 10 years in the counterculture trying to alter the culture, come up with ways of living that were more humane, less based on profit and private property. I lived on a lot of communes. I was one of the founders of a group called the Diggers, where we fed 600 people a day for nothing and had free stores and the first free medical clinic. But at the end of the day, as the 60s fell apart, it began to dawn on me that I was also part of the problem I was trying to solve. I was using a lot of heroin. So were my friends, a lot of drugs. And, you know, you can't really change much if you can't change yourself. So a time came when I had to change, and I started meditating in a Zen Buddhist monastery. I was seeing a girl who was a Zen student, and I went into psychotherapy. I had a lot of problems from my childhood. My dad was a very violent guy, and that stuff is in the book if you want to read that. But anyway, little by little, I kind of sobered up. And my friend Gary Snyder, a poet, won the Pulitzer Prize. And Jerry Brown, the governor, invited him to start an arts council made up of working artists. And Gary asked me to join. And something happened. I really took to it. I was elected chairman in the next year, and I was chairman for 4 years. And we radicalized state arts policy. We raised the budget from $1 to $18 million a year. And something in learning how to do that, I had to learn how to talk to conservatives and Republicans and Democrats, all different kinds of people. And that success actually gave me the confidence to think I didn't have to stay a hipster. And I resolved, my dad lost all his money, and he died 20 million below broke. And I didn't have anything. I had a daughter. I was a single father of a daughter, and I had to make a living. And I thought, I'll try acting. I'll give it 5 years. And if it doesn't work, at least I won't die with the what ifs, you know? And I did try it, and I got lucky. But to be honest, it was never the thing that I really cared about. I cared about writing. And although I was a good enough actor to do 160 movies, I knew I would never be a Daniel Day-Lewis or a Sean Penn or Robert De Niro or in those ranks. And really, as soon as my kids were out of school, graduate school, debt-free, I pretty much retired from acting. And I make most of my money from voiceovers and, you know, writing and speaking and stuff like that. And so really, I didn't want to write for money. So I kept my writing going. And I've written 4 books now. I'm working on a 5th. And I teach Buddhism. I teach Zen practice. And that's much more meaningful to me than acting was. If I had been able to, I would have gone to England and studied at the Royal Academy in Dramatic Arts, which I think produces the best actors in English. But I was 40 when I got my Screen Actors Guild card, and I was married. I had a child in school, and I just couldn't do that. And so I labored along really without a lot of training, and most of the time I did okay, but you know.
Yeah, I mean, everyone knows you from that infamous film. What was that like? I have to ask. I just have to ask. What was that like, being on the set of E.T., being part of such a magnificently well-known film around the globe?
Well, it wasn't known and well-known when we did it.
Right, of course.
And basically, it was my fall movie. And Steven Spielberg was not even Steven Spielberg. He was a very generous, improvisatory guy. And he made me come to the set every day, whether I was working or not. Used to tick me off. I'd be in this little inner chamber. I put a sign up, said Auschwitz for actors, because I just stuck in this little room, but he wanted me around. He was paying my salary. And it was not till afterwards that it became a big deal. But people don't really understand an actor's life, you know. I was out of work for 10 months when E.T. came out. The kids were going to see the Queen, you know, it was a big deal, but I was just the reasonable grown-up in it. And Stephen was nice enough to let me write that scene in the hospital where I tell Elliot, I'm glad he found you, because I convinced him we didn't want to make science or adults the enemy. But actors, more or less, unless you're one of the 12 people who can write their ticket, you're a character actor. And even though I've done a lot of lead roles, there's 100,000 actors, 99% of which are out of work at any given time. So, I was out of work for 10 months after E.T., almost a year after The Jagged Edge, almost a year after Outrageous Fortune. And you have to really be cold-blooded and save your money, and your kids are in school, your bills don't stop, you got mortgages. And so I just worked all the time and wrote when I could.
Yeah. I think it's magnificent, but here you are now doing what you're meant to do, which is not just practice, but to teach the rest of us. Particularly, I know that you're very interested in teaching this to young people. And I would love it if these principles, these Zen principles, Buddha, I know people are afraid of that, right? It's like, can't teach that in school, but Zen principles would be so magnificent to start in the preschool level and just make this part of the curriculum, part of the way that you go about taking a test, stressing the playground. You know what I mean? There's so much to learn here. Are you working to try and get that to happen, or you're doing this in your own way by teaching?
Well, a lot of people are doing this. Meditation itself is a kind of technique that can be secular. I mean, when you meditate, physical things happen. And I don't think anyone's threatened by meditation. Christians meditate, Jews meditate. So, I mean, I'm 80, so I keep my student load really small. I'm one of those old Chinese guys. I throw rocks at the people who come to study with me. They have to really mean it, because my time is unknown, and I have things that I want to do. And so if I spread myself too thin, which I tend to do, I don't get my own work done.
So someone who wants to study with you, how do they get in touch with you so that you could throw a stone at them?
Well, I do live Dharma talks on, I post a Zoom link on Facebook. I usually do it every other Wednesday. They can also go to YouTube, and I have a channel on YouTube, which is under my Buddhist name, Hosho, H-O-S-H-O, Peter Coyote. And every one of my edited Zoom lectures is on there. So that's a good way. And then in my books, there's contacts, sfzencoyote@gmail for anything about Buddhism. But there are, you can swing a cat and hit a Zen teacher where I live. If people want to study, they can find good teachers, and they don't need to study with a well-known person. They need to study with a sincere person. So if they find their way to me and through all the hurdles, well, I'll put them through a couple of years of testing and see if they stand up. But if they're interested, somewhere near them, there will be a Zen group that's sitting, and they can begin to sit with other people and learn how to sit and discuss things with them and find people in that community they trust. Because Buddha is actually your own innate wisdom. We're not bowing to Buddha the man. We're bowing to Buddha nature, which is the wisdom of the universe itself. And we're just trying to clear our greed and our hatred and our delusion out of the way, so our enlightened nature, which every one of us has, can shine through and we can hear it.
Peter Coyote, I guess we'll end on that. That was just wonderful to hear from you. And you do have a very soothing voice. So I can imagine studying with you. I can almost imagine just closing my eyes and listening to you, which is why you're so magnificent as a voice actor, because I just hear you and I'm automatically, instantly just put into a place where I want to rest, relax, meditate. So thank you for doing that. For me.
You're welcome. But there's a shadow to everything, Deborah. And the shadow to my voice is that it killed my career as a bank robber.
Yeah. I get it. I get it.
Peter
And
Coyote was here in a mask.
Peter Coyote was here in a mess. By the way, congratulations on your award-winning writing, because I know you're also very proud of that. If you want to just talk to us for another minute about that, because I know that's one of the
Okay.
things you're quite proud about. Go ahead.
Well, I have
'Cause you-
two previous books. One is called Sleeping Where I Fall. And it's really about the radical anarchist left in the 60s, about as far out as you could go. And my life is sort of the thread. And then the different people that I met and influenced me are like the pearls that are strung on it. And then the second book is called The Rain Man's Third Cure. And it's about mentors and teachers and how you get from shooting heroin in the back of a truck to being a Zen priest or having a life that you can be proud of. So those books are out there. And then a first book of poetry was published this year. And then I'm working on a book now called Vernacular Zen, which is a kind of everyday plain English explaining to people what Zen is and isn't, and how it helps you see the world as it actually is.
Peter Coyote, thank you so much. I also want to say that all of these, the information and videos are also on your website, because I was scouring your website. It's very comprehensive, so we can also go on there.
PeterCoyote.com.
Yeah,
I didn't
Coyote.
even know that. We're redoing my website so that it can be read on a cell phone. And I haven't looked at the old one. So
that's how I did mine. I read a lot of it on my
did?
phone. So I did. It was very, very easy to do. So whoever does your website, nice job. Peter Coyote, The Lone Ranger in Tonto, Meet Buddha, pick it up. Any of his other books, check out the website. Peter, you're such a delight. I learned a lot from you. I learned a lot reading about you. So thank you very much. And I hope our audience did as well. Everybody, you could find our interview on YouTube, my page, and we'll give it to Peter to put on his if he'd like. And we're also on Instagram, Facebook, and then we transfer it over into audio version, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio. Hello to the dog. What's the dog's name?
That's Chico and Pablo.
I think your friend is back. That's what's happening. Anyway, thank you very much, Peter. And then we have a brief commercial, and we'll see you next time, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much, Deborah.
Bye. Thank you.
I love individual jewelry pieces, and I recently discovered Annie's Kit Clubs and started making stunning earrings and necklaces that are all one of a kind. Each kit comes directly to my home, complete with real stones, pearls, crystals, and semi-precious gems to create any style from casual to formal. Kits are beginner friendly, they come with all supplies and instructions, but you know what? It doesn't end there. Annie's Kit of the Month Club also includes crochet and knitting clubs to make your own socks, gloves, and afghans. There's also a creative girls club, a young woodworkers club, so much more. Get 75% off of your first month of a kit subscription with the promo code DKLive75. Go to Annie'sKitClubs.com and discover a relaxing, unique way to create something truly special for you and your family. That's DK